Happy birthday, Daniel!
Cheers!
Sometimes the loneliest people are not the poor ones. Sometimes they are the people surrounded by luxury, fake smiles, and people who only love what they can collect. Because Daniel Lawson had everything money could buy. Everything except genuine love. Welcome to Tales by Dema. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with shocking twists, hidden identities, betrayal, and powerful love stories, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any story. And tell me in the comments, if somebody became poor tomorrow, would the people around them still stay? Now let's dive into today's story. Daniel Lawson was 32 years old and tired of pretending to be happy. As the CEO of Lawson Technologies, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Lagos, he lived the kind of life most people only dreamed about. Luxury cars, penthouse apartment, private driver, security escorts, business-class flights. Money flowed around him endlessly. Women too, beautiful women, models, influencers, socialites. Everywhere Daniel went, women smiled at him like he was the answer to all their prayers. But Daniel had learned something painful. Most people were not smiling at him. They were smiling at his money. And after years of fake relationships, Daniel became emotionally exhausted. The final straw came during his birthday dinner. His girlfriend Vanessa organized a lavish party at an expensive restaurant in Victoria Island. Champagne flowed, music played loudly, guests posted videos online nonstop. But halfway through the night, Daniel stepped away toward the restroom and accidentally overheard Vanessa talking to her friends nearby. One friend laughed. "So Vanessa, be honest, do you actually love him?" Vanessa scoffed loudly. "Love?" The women laughed. "Please, if Daniel becomes broke tomorrow, I'm disappearing immediately." Everybody burst into laughter. Another friend added, "At least marry him before running away." Daniel froze completely behind the hallway wall. His chest tightened painfully. Vanessa continued casually, "Do you know how stressful it is dating rich men? You have to pretend all the time." More laughter. At that moment, something inside Daniel broke quietly. Not anger, not heartbreak, just exhaustion, deep exhaustion. That night after the party, he sat alone inside his penthouse staring at the city lights for hours. Then finally he whispered to himself, "What if nobody actually loves me?" The question haunted him. And 3 days later, Daniel made the craziest decision of his life. For 1 month, he would disappear completely. No billionaire lifestyle, no luxury clothes, no security, no expensive cars. He wanted to know how the world treated ordinary people. More importantly, he wanted to know if genuine love still existed. His assistant nearly fainted when he explained the plan. "Sir, this is dangerous." Daniel shook his head calmly. "I'm tired of fake people." Under a fake name, David, Daniel rented a tiny room in a struggling neighborhood in Surulere. The room was so small that even stretching fully felt difficult. For the first time in years, Daniel boarded public buses, wore cheap clothes, ate roadside food, walked without security. And honestly, the experience shocked him. People treated poor people terribly. Security guards ignored greetings. Shop owners insulted struggling customers. Women who normally smiled at him suddenly acted like he didn't exist. One afternoon, he entered a boutique simply to ask for water. The salesgirl looked at his cheap clothes and snapped immediately, "If you're not buying anything, leave." Daniel walked out silently. That night, he sat alone inside the tiny room staring at the ceiling fan. For the first time in his life, he understood how invisible poor people felt. Then one rainy evening, everything changed. Daniel had spent almost 2 days eating very little because he forgot how difficult survival could become without unlimited money. He had frozen his account and only had little money with him. Heavy rain poured across Lagos streets. Cars splashed muddy water everywhere. Hungry and exhausted, Daniel stopped outside a small local restaurant called Mama Joy Kitchen. The smell of jollof rice nearly drove him mad with hunger. Customers sat eating loudly inside. Daniel hesitated near the entrance awkwardly. A security man immediately blocked him. "No begging here." "I'm not begging," Daniel replied quietly. The guard rolled his eyes. "Then move." Embarrassment burned Daniel's chest. As he turned to leave weakly, dizziness suddenly hit him hard. The next thing he knew, he collapsed. People shouted immediately, "Hey!" Somebody fell. Maybe he's drunk. But nobody moved toward him. Nobody except one person. A young waitress rushed outside carrying an umbrella. "Please move." She knelt beside Daniel immediately. "Can you hear me?" Daniel opened his eyes weakly and saw her. She was wearing simple black uniform. No makeup, tired eyes, but kindness, real kindness. "My name is Amaka," she said softly. "Can you stand?" Daniel nodded weakly. Amaka helped him sit near the restaurant entrance. Then, without hesitation, she disappeared briefly and returned carrying food. Hot rice, chicken, water. Daniel stared at her. "You don't have to do this." Amaka shrugged lightly. "You look hungry." Daniel was shocked. No suspicion, no disgust, no mockery, just concern. Daniel ate slowly while rain continued pouring heavily outside. Amaka sat nearby quietly. After a few minutes, she asked softly, "Do you have somewhere to sleep?" Daniel hesitated. "Yes." But that was nothing but a lie. He had been locked out of the cheap room because he forgot to renew payment earlier that day due to the fact that he did take enough money that would last him for the period of his plan before freezing his account. Amaka noticed the hesitation immediately. Then she sighed softly. "My younger brother sleeps at the restaurant sometimes after closing. You can stay there tonight if you want." Daniel looked up in disbelief. "You're trusting a complete stranger?" Amaka smiled faintly. "Sometimes people just need help." That sentence stayed in Daniel's mind long after. That night after the restaurant closed, Amaka arranged old cushions near the storage area for him. Not luxury, not comfort, but kindness. And strangely, Daniel felt more peace there than he had felt inside his expensive penthouse for years. Over the next few days, he kept returning to the restaurant. At first only to thank her. But slowly, something changed. He began looking forward to seeing Amaka. They started talking regularly after closing hours. Daniel learned her father was dead. She supported her sick mother. She paid school fees for 2 younger siblings. She barely slept because of work. Yet, despite all her struggles, Amaka remained kind. One evening, Daniel finally asked, "Why are you always helping people when life is already hard for you?" Amaka smiled tiredly. "Because I know how suffering feels." Daniel stared at her quietly, and for the first time in many years, his heart became afraid, because slowly, he was falling in love with a woman who had absolutely no idea he was a billionaire. Sometimes love becomes dangerous the moment lies enter it. Because the deeper Daniel fell in love with Amaka, the more terrified he became of telling her the truth. If this story is touching your heart already, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. If you discovered somebody hid their true identity from you, would you forgive them? Now let's continue. Over the following weeks, Daniel's double life became harder to manage. Every morning, he still secretly monitored Lawson Technologies through emails and private calls with his assistant. But every evening, he became David again, the struggling man in cheap clothes who sat with Amaka behind Mama Joy Kitchen after closing hours. And strangely, those evenings became the happiest moments of his life. For the first time in years, somebody laughed with him without calculating his bank account. Amaka never asked what car he drove, how much he earned, what expensive gifts he could buy. Instead, she asked things nobody else cared about anymore. "Did you eat today? Are you okay? Why do you always look sad sometimes?" Simple questions, but they touched Daniel deeply. One evening after work, Amaka found Daniel sitting quietly outside the restaurant staring into space. "You're thinking again," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "You notice too much." Amaka sat beside him holding 2 plastic cups of tea. When somebody carries pain long enough, you can see it in their face. Daniel looked at her carefully. Then, before he could stop himself, he asked, What if somebody lies to you because they're afraid? Amaka frowned slightly. What kind of lie? A big one. She thought quietly for a moment and then said, depends on the reason. Daniel hesitated for a moment before asking, saying, and if the person was afraid the truth would make you leave? Amaka looked at him strangely. David, what are you hiding? Daniel forced a smile immediately. Nothing. But inside, fear tightened around his chest. Because every day he delayed telling the truth, the lie grew bigger. Meanwhile, trouble was already approaching. One afternoon at Lawson Technologies headquarters in Victoria Island, Daniel's assistant Tund became increasingly worried. The company board members were becoming unrest. Sir, you cannot continue disappearing like this, Tund warned over the phone. Daniel sighed. I just need more time. Vanessa has been looking everywhere for you too. Daniel laughed bitterly. Of course she has. Since Daniel's disappearance, Vanessa had tried repeatedly to reach him. Not because she cared about him, but because she was no longer receiving credit alerts and her wardrobe needs changing. She feared losing the kind of lifestyle she had been living. So she secretly hired a security staff to look for Daniel. At first, the staff couldn't find anything because Daniel intentionally avoided his usual locations. But one evening, the security staff spotted Daniel entering Mama Joy Kitchen in Surreyr wearing cheap clothes. The security immediately informed Vanessa. At first she didn't believe it. A billionaire eating at a roadside restaurant? Impossible. So one evening, Vanessa personally drove there to confirm it herself, and everything nearly collapsed. Amaka and Daniel were sitting outside eating roasted corn when a luxury SUV suddenly slowed near the restaurant. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. He recognized the vehicle immediately. It was the one he bought for Vanessa. Before he could react properly, the SUV window rolled down. Vanessa's eyes widened instantly. Daniel? Amaka looked confused immediately. Daniel stood up quickly. Vanessa, what the hell is this? She demanded loudly. People nearby turned immediately. Vanessa stepped out wearing expensive designer clothes and sunglasses. She looked Daniel up and down in disbelief. You disappeared for weeks and you're here dressed like this? Amaka slowly stood up too. David, who is she? Daniel's mind raced desperately. Vanessa suddenly laughed mockingly. Oh my God. She pointed at Amaka. You don't know who he is, do you? Daniel's chest tightened. Vanessa, stop. But Vanessa was already enjoying herself. This man is Daniel Lawson, billionaire CEO of Lawson Technologies. At that point, everyone was silent. Amaka blinked repeatedly. What? She asked, her brows furrowed. Vanessa folded her arms smugly. He owns companies, mansions, half the city practically. Amaka stared at Daniel like she didn't recognize him anymore. The look on Daniel's face confirmed that what Vanessa was saying was true. Daniel stepped toward her immediately. Amaka, listen to me. You lied to me? Pain filled her voice instantly. Daniel swallowed hard. Sorry. I had to do it. I wanted somebody to love me genuinely. So you decided to deceive me instead? No. For weeks, people nearby started whispering already. Some recognized Daniel immediately now. Without hesitation, people brought out their phones and began recording videos. Vanessa smirked proudly. I can't believe you would do something as stupid as pretending to be poor. But Daniel ignored her completely. His attention stayed on Amaka, because the hurt in her eyes terrified him. You should have told me, she whispered. Daniel lowered his head briefly. I am sorry. Amaka stepped backward slowly. All this time I was sharing food with you while you were secretly richer than everybody around me combined? It wasn't about money. Then what was it about? Daniel struggled for words, because honestly, he didn't fully understand anymore. At first, the experiment was about discovering if someone would love him genuinely. The intention was never to love the person back. But somewhere along the line, Amaka stopped becoming an experiment. She became real, and now he was losing her. Amaka shook her head painfully. You made me look foolish. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. Daniel tried following her. "Amaka, please." But she stopped him coldly. "I don't know who you are anymore." That sentence broke something inside him. Overnight, social media exploded. Billionaire disguises himself as poor man. Waitress unknowingly dates CEO. Lawson billionaire living double life. News blogs carried the story everywhere. And suddenly the same women who once ignored David started flooding Daniel's phone again. Models, influencers, ex-girlfriends. Everybody suddenly remembered him. But Daniel didn't care anymore. Because the only person he wanted to talk to refused seeing him. Amaka stopped answering calls completely. At work, coworkers suddenly treated her differently too. Some became jealous. Others mocked her. "You missed your billionaire husband. Why didn't you secure the bag properly?" The comments irritated her deeply. Because despite everything, what hurt most was not the money. It was the deception. Then 3 weeks later, Daniel made a decision. If Amaka refused seeing him privately, he would speak publicly instead. Mama Joy Kitchen celebrated its 10th anniversary that weekend with music and customer appreciation. The restaurant was packed. Amaka was serving customers when loud commotion suddenly erupted outside. Luxury vehicles filled the street. People rushed toward windows immediately. Then Daniel stepped out wearing a simple black suit. Not flashy, not arrogant, just serious. The restaurant exploded into whispers instantly. "Nah, that billionaire. He came back." Amaka froze completely behind the counter. Daniel walked inside slowly. Every eye followed him. Then he stopped directly in front of Amaka. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Daniel inhaled deeply, then said loudly enough for everybody to hear, "I came here today because I'm tired of pretending." The restaurant became completely silent. Daniel continued, "For years I believed money made genuine love impossible. Every woman around me loved my lifestyle before loving me. So I became angry, suspicious, lonely." His eyes stayed on Amaka. "Then I met somebody who treated me with kindness when I looked worthless." Amaka's chest tightened emotionally. Daniel's voice became softer as he continued. "You fed me before knowing my name. You protected me before knowing my status. You cared about me before knowing my bank account." Complete silence filled the restaurant now. Then Daniel reached into his pocket slowly and brought out a small ring box. Gasps exploded everywhere. Amaka's eyes widened immediately. Daniel stepped closer. "Amaka, the richest thing you ever gave me was sincerity. And if you can forgive me for my foolishness, I want to spend the rest of my life loving you honestly this time." Tears instantly filled Amaka's eyes. The entire restaurant held its breath waiting. And after several emotional seconds, Amaka finally smiled through tears. Then softly she said, "Only if you promise never to lie to me again." Daniel laughed emotionally. "I promise." The restaurant erupted into cheers immediately. And as Daniel slid the ring onto her finger, one truth became clear. The poor waitress who once fed a struggling stranger had unknowingly healed the lonely heart of a billionaire.